I'm not opposed to the study which has been proposed. However, I asked for hearings in front of the Commerce Committee. I asked that these hearings be public, that they be televised so that people could have a direct understanding of the connection between violence on television and violence in the streets. These hearings could be similar to the Kefauver hearings on crime, which alerted the nation to crime. These hearings could be similar to the Fulbright hearings on television on Vietnam, which alerted the nation to the question of the Vietnam danger.
Well, we continue to discuss about obscenity and obscenity laws, that we have politicians on both sides of the aisle that want to redefine the terminology obscenity. And it's the same thing with hate speech, misinformation. All this comes down to basically censorship. This is what is going on to this point. Now, I've pulled out this particular episode to talk about that there are things going on that most people are not realizing it. And most people push it to the side and says, no, they're not really going after these things and stuff like that. I'm going to tell you for a fact that this is happening. And it's not only happening here, it's happening around the world. We have another video coming out that Russia plans to extend more bans on one classification of entertainment, which is anime and manga. And we'll have that on another episode. In this one, we will be mentioning anime, gaming, because just like what happened in the 1990s, as the song says, the song remains the same. They're tooting the same rhetoric that they've done for many decades now. If you were from my generation, we grew up with the early portion of the video games and VHS and Saturday morning cartoons. And when we hit the 90s, the government wanted to blame everything, every little single crime, violence, on anything that basically wasn't the person's own responsibility, or the child's responsibility, or the parent's responsibility. What they wanted to do is, it was the music. It was the television show. No, it was the video game.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
And this has to stop. We need the Supreme Court to finally put a, nail in the coffin of this attack on the entertainment business. Specifically, gaming, anime, manga, broadcast television, streaming, when it comes down to certain programming. The worst part about it is when you talk to some of these people that are pushing these laws, they literally don't understand that there is a difference between the classifications. Like, for example, in anime and manga, there are anime and manga that are made for children, that are made for adults, and then there are those that goes a little bit above, which we would call pornography or hentai, but they decides to call all of it pornography.
I'm mad as hell! I'm not gonna take it anymore!
I'm mad as hell! I'm not going to take it anymore!
I'm mad as hell and I'm not gonna take it anymore!
This is the same thought as Morality Media, or NOS, has when they attacked the Swimsuit Edition, Sports Illustrated, and Cosmopolitan magazine, that they listed as pornography. But before we start with this article out of Nietzsche Gamer, I just want to thank you for those who have subscribed, who has liked, who have shared this video. YouTube has been holding us back a bit. I was on the other night talking with a couple of other YouTubers. I was on the SCIFI Snob stream where we were talking about Babylon 5, and we discussed all the problems that us content creators, independent media, new independent media that are going through. And the thing about it is, it all comes down to ratings. That there are those of us out there that do much better than the major networks. That we pull in a lot of viewership and growing every day. What's our secret? There is no secret. It's talking about what people want to hear. The proper news, the proper information. No holds barred, no censorship, just straight shooting from the hip. And that's why it's important to subscribe, like, share, and even comment on there. When we ask you to do this, it is a great appreciation that you do this for us. It helps us move in the algorithm. And if those of you out there who want to go further than that and help us basically try to build this channel up, there in the description below, there are additional ways you could do it monetarily through our gear shop, and also you can throw in some, couple bucks for coffee. Help us buy a cup of coffee a day. You can do that. It is listed below there. So once again, thank you. We really do appreciate it. Also, do check out Sci-Fi Snob. We'll leave a link below on there. My next appearance on the show will be in about, when this comes out, in about 2 weeks, which will be the season finale of Babylon 5 Season 1, Chrysalis. So, getting back to this. Now, Texas tried basically pushing out a law that would ban anime like Goblin Slayer. But that failed to basically get through the courts and basically was nixed. Now we're back again with a new bill being introduced by Senator Mike Lee of Utah. Of course, this is all from Utah, morality in media, Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon religion. It's not only the Christian side radicals are doing this well, it is the radicals in the Mormon religion as well. Because the thing is that they want to push the situation. You can't control people and tell them what to watch every day. Look what is going on in the United Kingdom. And, people being arrested just for saying things on the internet. And then, of course, programming, they're trying to force you to watch some of their programming. To that point. But we're going to read into this from Niche Gamer. Republican senator introduces bill to define obscenity may pose risk to video game and anime. A Republican senator has introduced bill titled S-1671, a bill to define obscenity for the purpose of the Communications Act of 1934 and for other purposes. See, they always say other purposes because it's going to go beyond that. The bill has been introduced by Senator Mike Lee, making it the latest attacks against the media. A Republican bill in Texas that would have potentially made watching Goblin Slayer a felony has been stalled in the state legislature earlier this year. Currently, media is given a lot of leeway when it comes to explicit, grotesque, or otherwise potentially objectionable content. The leeway has allowed Americans to create and produce near whatever we want, with a few exceptions. Currently, laws against obscenity exist in the form of the Communications Act of 1934. While restrictions on obscenity still on the books, some consider them to be unenforceable for the First Amendment reasons, and currently obscene is defined with what is called the Miller's Test. The Miller's Test is a series of 3 qualifications which potentially remove First Amendment protections from the potential obscene speech. And you notice they put speech in there. 1. Whether an average person applying contemporary community standards would find that the work taken as a whole appears to prudent interest. 2. Whenever the work depicts or describes in patently offensive ways sexual conduct or excretory functions specifically defined by applicable state laws. 3. Whenever work taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. Now, the nebulous nature of the test have been given media a relatively free pass, but should existing laws become more readily enforceable, it could have a chilling effect on video games and anime. No, actually, it would have a chilling effect on all entertainment. And we're talking everything from media, newspapers, books, broadcast television. After all, didn't Jack Thompson and other moral Puritans of the late 20th century consider video games to lack serious literary and artistic, political, or scientific value? Yeah, if you remember that situation. And, this was things, these are the same politicians year after year. Some of them are gone now. They've deceased and some of that, but others have taken up the mantle of the same fight constantly. What is the end game to the situation? See, the thing is, they want to stop, basically, they want to control what is going through the media. They don't want you to learn. They don't want you to be artistic. People say, well, how's anime artistic with all the sex and all that? There's not sex in every anime. Like I said, anime, manga, they have different genres. Same thing with regular movies out of anywhere around the world, including Hollywood. We have our G-rated, our PG, PG-13, R, NC-17, and technically we do still have an X rating out there, but it's hardly ever used. Why hasn't it been? It's a joke. I mean, yeah, you have porn movies on there, but they don't put an X rating on their stuff anymore. But if it's a porn movie to that point. But see, the X rating has always been a joke. You've had many movies in history that has been slapped with that X rating, and one movie took it to heart and was proud to have it on there, and that's Fritz the Cat. They were proud to have that X rating on there. There have been many movies in Hollywood history that have gotten an X rating. I mean, to give you a perfect example, and I'm going down the list. Basically, the movie Female Trouble. The John Waters movie. This is a John Waters movie with Divine. Got an X rating onto there. The horror film Blood-Sucking Freaks, which wasn't that bad. 1972's The Last House on the Left. And they remade this today, and it didn't get an X rating on there. They have remade it. Of course, Russ Meyer's got most of his stuff is X rating, but his is, a lot of his films are fantastic. I mean, if you go through his catalog, and right now they're remastering practically everything. Some of the stuff that doesn't get talked about is some fantastic filmmaking on there. I Drink Your Blood, Ilsa She-Wolf of the SS. There's also here's one with starring Helen Mirren, the cook, the thief, and his wife and her lover. At one point had gotten that X rating, which they changed around on there. Evil Dead, got an X rating. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and many others, that had gotten an X rating to the point. Caligula is another one on there. Mean Streets, and we can go on and on and on and on. And basically, these are films that they've changed out. They've had their ratings changed, like Clockwork Orange and Midnight Cowboy, also. I mean, the thing about it is, you have to remember to the point. The reason they got an X rating is because somebody was obscene. They did basically, they thought that the movie was obscene in itself, and that, it shouldn't be out. Shouldn't be out in the open. This is why we had the Hays Code back starting in the 30s. They tell you what can go in your movie, what can't you go in a movie. Man and woman can't sleep in the same bed, even if they're married. They couldn't show a certain amount of leg, hosiery, smoking, drinking, using a certain particular weapon. It amazes me. And this is why the Supreme Court, remember, the Supreme Court knocked down the Hays Code. Why? Because it takes away the artistic expression of the writer, the creator of the film, or the writer of the book. It takes away their expression, their artistic expression. That's why the Hays Code in itself was basically damaged goods. And it's happening again. It's happening again today. When I tell you that the MPAA needs to go now, and I truly, really mean it. I mean, this is now you're telling studios that they have to have, a mixture of different people of different color, races, and handicaps and stuff like that. But that's not how it works. That violates job laws. I mean, federal and state. We don't hire by sex, creed, color, gender, whatever you want to call to the situations on there. We hire by merit or how experienced we are. We shall not be judged by the color of our skin or our handicaps. We should be judged on the value that we can bring to the company itself. That is the way it's supposed to be. And Hollywood has violated that law by imposing that, the Oscars need to have this about. But the thing about it is, no offense, they said, well, we need to break the glass ceiling and all that. We need more. Well, the thing about it is, those movies are out there. Those are. But see, it's basically the way they're chosen on there, how they... I mean, I can go back and remember there was a documentary about Midnight Basketball that basically should have been in the Oscars. It was a fantastic film, and basically it was snubbed from the Oscars. And many other films have been snubbed from the Oscars. This year, this past year, some animated films were basically snubbed from the Oscars because it didn't fall under the category that they deemed. But see, the thing is that, besides that, these politicians, they just want to shift back and start to arrest people for freedom of speech. They're already doing that in the United Kingdom. As I said before, it's already happening there. This country's the last line of freedom in the world. Why? Because we still have the Constitution in our favor. They want to change the First Amendment. They want to change the Second Amendment. They want to change the Fourth, Fifth, Seventh, Eighth Amendments on there. And they use the 14th Amendment to wrap it around with their argument. And they misquote the 14th Amendment all the time. They'll go halfway down and don't go beyond a certain point. And this happens all the time. Do we really want to go back to arresting producers, actors, actresses, comedians? Do we want to go back to that again? Do we want to go back to a period, a dark time in American history where basically you couldn't write the film that you really, truly want to put on screen? Remember, 1970s to the 90s was a renaissance of filmmaking. Once the Hays Code, after the Hays Code was deposed, it took another 10 years just to rewrite the entire movie industry. Once that happened, we got into the 70s. I mean, you had some great films, Oscar winning. Some of it was controversial, yes, but it was well done. Controversial, when they talk about controversial, is that basically it's a talking point. They believe, perfect example, the last Temptation of Christ, which happens to be a very good film. If you haven't seen this film, it's a pretty good film. William Dafoe playing Jesus Christ. It got protested because people said, well, no, Jesus can't have a family, can't have a kids. Did you read the title of the film? Did you understand what the title of the film meant? All they heard was Jesus got off the cross, got married to Mary Magdalene, had kids, and lived his life. But that's not what the film was. The film was called The Last Temptation of Christ. Spoilers, if you haven't seen it, and you understand what the title means, is Jesus on the cross being tempted by the devil for the last time before he dies. And this is what was put in front of him. What you saw throughout the entire film was a temptation by the devil. And that's one purview. And now, obviously, I understand some Catholics may not like it, to that point. But it is a story. It's a story we carry to that point. And there have been many other films. A lot of them very artistic. And you have to put to that category. Making a film is like making a painting. And it's the same thing with anime. You know, there are some great anime out there. Some fantastic stories on there. Graveyard of the Fireflies. If you haven't seen, have a tissue box because it is a sad movie. It's fantastic. It's about the Hiroshima bombing and 2 children trying to survive with radiation poisoning through the whole movie. And there are many other films. Now, yes, there are some adult stuff out there. Yeah, of course. Redo the Healer, Interspecies Reviewers, High School DxD, and there's many other. And then there's some other stuff that has some fan service and stuff like that. But can't we point out movies that were made in the US of A that are similar? Can't we count of the what they call it, the high school teenage romp movies of the 1980s of the VHS era? Or the insane police, stewardess, occupational job movies that have sometimes might have a porn star like Ginger Lynn in it, but technically was not a sex romp, but a little bit of sex in it, but it was more of a comedy type situation. This is the stuff they want to yank out, including comedy. They're going to go through the R. They're not going to stop with anime and manga. They're not going to stop with the porn industry. They're going to continue on through the R-rated. They're going to filter through. You already seen, we had a video this week that, they took out title card on Amazon Prime for Robin Hood, the 2011 version. Why? Because they didn't like what was on that title card. They thought that it may influence somebody to go out and be like Robin Hood. Well, that's a person that has a situation with them. It's a choice that they make, not what the movie told them to do. They make, because that's the other part of the situation. You have governments that think that basically if someone decides to self-delete and they have a particular song playing or a particular poster for an anime, that basically those are at fault. We've been through trials like that. It comes down to parenting. It comes down to mental health issues. Not for what's on your screen, not for what the book in the library, or the music you're hearing on your phone or on in your house. We need to take responsibility for our own actions. That's where we need to base ourselves on. But what I need for you to be based on is basically to comment on the screen right now. Tell me your thoughts about this. We went a little long on this, but you get the meaning of this whole situation. So I really would like you to comment, like, share, and hit that subscribe button. We would really do appreciate it. And for clicking on this video, we really do appreciate that as well, because there are thousands and thousands of videos you could have chose, but you chose ours, and we really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Until next time, thank you for tuning in, and bye-bye now.